Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. Allincrypto here, and today we are going to be talking about Chainlink once again. And I do apologize for the spamming of the Chainlink content, but we do genuinely believe that Chainlink is that big of a deal. And there's been a lot of really interesting things coming out of the Chainlink ecosystem, most notably with SmartCon, which is a kind of conference that has been set up by Chainlink, an event, if you will. And there's been some absolutely colossal announcements. What I want to do in this video is look at a recent interview from Sergey Nazarov, actually talking about how banks need the likes of Chainlink or something similar to what Chainlink is essentially facilitating. However, Chainlink is already working with banks. It has some of the largest banks in Australia on board. It has Swift on board. It recently announced, or Vodafone, I should say, or the Vodafone Group announced collaboration and integration with Chainlink CCIP, which we'll look at. And then we're going to be looking at Chainlink from a price point of view, because this is going to be a monster, ladies and gentlemen, when it breaks. And despite the sideways price action, you can actually see that on-balance volume has continued to incline, suggesting a real accumulation during this range. And that's exactly what we expect this range to be. We've also looked at the fact that actually it's very interesting that most coins continue to capitulate from May really until sort of November, obviously with the FTX crash, and Chainlink's just gone sideways in a range. And you're at the current sort of top side of that range. I'd hate to see a reversion all the way back to the lower end, but eventually, in our opinion, this is going to break to the upside, and it's going to do that with momentum. And I think the nature of the market that you're in right now is a very lackluster one. And that's why a lot of what's been coming out of Chainlink's sort of event hasn't really been received, I guess, from the market. Chainlink's been having a nice little move, but it's nothing in regards to the kind of scope and scale of the move that I think we are to have as Chainlink becomes a key player in the integration of distributed ledger technology with the traditional financial systems. So what I want to do, guys, is go over to clip number one. Now, this was an interview from Trade Talks, which I believe is the NASDAQ's kind of media outlet. And essentially, you've got Sergey explaining, when asked the question of CCIP and the kind of demand for it, why it is that that demand exists and why it's likely to grow in an ever evolving and digitalized world. So let's get into clip number one, guys.
Earlier this year, Chainlink released the cross-chain interoperability protocol known as CCIP on mainnet and published a report with Swift and a dozen other financial institutions, including DTCC and ANZ, about how CCIP can make interoperability between private and public blockchains happen. Could you tell us more about the interest from institutions to in the capital market space and how CCIP is creating a global internet of contracts?
So the interest is already very large and rapidly growing. Every single bank that has its own chain or is looking to make its own chain now understands that without interoperability with other chains, they will be stuck on what they call a liquidity island. So they will be stuck in their own chain without the ability for anyone else to purchase or use whatever they create, which is a very bad situation, because when you create assets, you want people to buy them. So right now, there's this phase of realization that if I'm a bank and I make my own chain, people will not join my chain. People will stay in their wallet or in their system or in their chain, even if they want to transact with me. So what CCIP does is it links these different chains into this one internet of contracts. And that one internet of contracts, when you link it together with enough banks, becomes the largest liquidity layer. So it becomes the place where the most and the largest amount of banks and value can sit and be used by both other banks and eventually Web3 public blockchain applications. The banks now understand that without a way to interoperate with their counterparties' chains and with public chains, they won't be able to be successful in whatever assets they create, no matter how good their brand or how good the asset. And so interoperability is now a hard requirement for whatever asset or whatever chain they make to become successful.
Fascinating. I think what Sergey essentially said there is that Chainlink is a necessary part of the traditional financial world moving on to distributed ledger technology, whether that be their own chains. There's going to need to be interconnectivity. There's going to need to be that connective layer, which Chainlink is. You know, we have been spamming Chainlink content. You guys will know that I was an early investor in Chainlink in 2018-19. And I believe today you are also an early investor in what's to come. Chainlink's kind of like the dough that makes the bread. It's a very exciting and interesting prospect, and I'm very honored and humbled to be on this journey with you all as a crypto investor. I want to now actually move on to a Vodafone announcement that essentially came out of SmartCon, again from the same interviewer and the NASDAQ. Essentially, it says, we're not connecting the application layer, we're going deeper. Working with Vodafone Group, InnoWave T, Chainlink's CCIP was used to demonstrate how blockchain and e-bill of lading can make a fragmented global trade system interoperable for Sumitomo Corp. So let's dive into this, guys, and then we will wrap things up with a little bit of price analysis. I could have played so many clips out of SmartCon. Many of the speakers were just amazing. It's something that we'll definitely be attending the next one. We could have attended this one. Obviously, we just had a little bit of issues with sort of time and setup. But let's go ahead and get into the clip of Vodafone, and then we're going to move on to some price analysis.
Proof of concept with Chainlink Labs, InnoWave, and Sumitomo.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So Sumitomo is actually our partner. We have a joint venture with Sumitomo on digital asset broker, and we were discussing with Sumitomo about use cases where we can collaborate. And Sumitomo, as you may know, is like for hundreds of years have been running trading companies, right? They trade globally, and one of their challenges that they told us is that global trade is a very fragmented landscape, right? You have many organizations, devices, but they're not interconnected. And there are many, many different applications, right? So how can all these applications talk to each other in a more efficient way without having to just use one single platform, right? So similar to kind of like what's happening in Web3, there's so many blockchain networks. Instead of having one single network, can we interoperate the networks? Right. So it's a similar concept. So what we're doing in this proof of concept is looking at interoperability. We're not trying to connect at the application layer, we're going deeper, right? And it's the idea of like using Chainlink's cross-chain interoperability protocol, CCIP, to allow all of these different platforms that they can connect and exchange data securely with each other, right? So that's what we're looking for. And today at the demo today, what we showed was a very simple trading case. There's a buyer and seller, they want to buy some equipment, and they exchange a trade document called the electronic bill of lading, right? So this document actually passes across 5 different organizations, and they're all on different blockchain networks, right? And what we show is that it's actually using CCIP, a more, an easier way to achieve interoperability between different parties. So that was the demo today. And the goal is that we can now move on from this demo and bring more industry players in, platforms in that we can collaborate with and do like a proper MVP.
Nothing short of fascinating. There was honestly so much that has came out of SmartCon. Let's move on to a little bit of price analysis. The cryptocurrency market is suffering from, it's like a deer in the headlights really with everything going on the macro stage. However, it will sort itself out eventually. It's going to sort itself out with the macro situation sorting itself out. We cover the markets daily, so we're not going to go into too much detail on it. We've been looking at bonds. FX market was a very volatile day yesterday, and Chainlink really has just been in a range now for over 500 days, 511 days. We believe this is a range of accumulation. We think it's very interesting that most other using Bitcoin as a barometer for this, cryptocurrencies continue to capitulate. If you look at when Chainlink made its low, most of the cryptocurrencies, we could have used the total too, would have probably been a better one to use, continue to go on and put in lows. We believe that this is accumulation, and we actually believe that your on-balance volume, despite the price action going sideways, your on-balance volume, and the daily chart actually shows this far more apparently, has continued to trend upwards. This to me is a good indication that you are getting accumulation of Chainlink here, and that ultimately, and this is on Coinbase, so it's similar for other exchanges, that ultimately this is going to result in the upside. If we start to see a real dumping of this, then it's likely going to coincide with a losing of support. However, So far, so good. This is quite a telling sign, and I think very telling of what's to come. You know, you have been the longer the range, the bigger the move. And again, Chainlink has literally been consolidating, and we've done quite a few videos where we've shown you a number of examples, whether it be Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, they all sort of consolidated, and it's very common for a market that has real value to consolidate in a range-like fashion, only for a green light to be given and for it to go on and do extraordinary. And we think Chainlink is going to do that for fundamental reasons, and now we're just looking for that technical break. We would assess that this is a stage 1 base, a suspected stage 1 base that's going to be confirmed on a break with volume, likely a retest, and then continuation, and you start your journey to the upside. That's what we think is to come, guys, and that's why we continue to highlight Chainlink. Not only is it exceptionally impressive in terms of the innovative nature that it brings to the crypto space, but technically it looks kosher. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you. See you all in the next one.